In the previous video, we explored what Node.js is and why you might want to use it. In this video, we're actually going to get Node.js up and running on our computers. Node.js is tested on Linux, Mac, and Solaris, and should also run on FreeBSD, OpenBSD, and Windows under Cygwin. Node.js is installed by compiling the source code. This means you must have the tools to compile the code, like a C++ compiler, make, etc. If you're going to be running a Linux or Solaris or FreeBSD, then you're probably already good to go with the tools. If you're running on OS X, you'll need to have the developer's tools installed, and you can find these on your OS X install DVD, or you can download them off of Apple's website. This will install Xcode and the rest of the build toolchain. We don't need Xcode for Node, but we do need the other tools. If you're running Windows, you will need to be running Cygwin to use Node. In another video, we'll show you the steps for getting Node running on Windows. The build system also requires Python version 2.4 or better. Python may already be installed on your system, but you should check the version number to make sure that you have 2.4 or better. You can do this by typing in your command prompt python --version. If you don't have Python installed or it's out of date, visit python.org and install an updated version for your operating system. Once we have all our build tools installed, we're now going to want to download Node. So we're going to visit nodejs.org and click on Download. There should be the most recent version of Node available as a tar.gz file. Just click Download, and then we're going to switch over to our download directory. And we can extract this by using whatever archive manager you want, or by doing it on the command line. So now we can see inside this folder is a bunch of files that are the source code of Node. And now we're going to want to switch over to our command prompt. We're going to switch over to where we downloaded our files. In my case, it was the downloads directory. And we can see that there's a directory here for Node. So we're going to change into that directory. And now we're going to configure our build. We do this by typing /configure and let that run. And what this does is it looks at your computer and it configures how it's going to actually build the system to fit your computer's specifications. So now we're going to type make, and this one will take slightly longer. This is actually building our source code files into the binary files that Node will actually execute. And now our make command is completed and it's compiled all the code. There's one last step that we need to do, and that's to actually install the files. So we do this by typing make install. Now, based on your system configuration, you're likely going to want to call sudo. And what this does is it runs the application as an administrator, so you can actually place the Node executable in the system directory where your binaries are. So when you call it with sudo, it's going to ask you for your password, so just type it in. And it's going to be real quick as it just copies things into the right places. Now you can test if Node works by typing node-v, and we can see that we have 0.1.99 installed. Now that we have Node installed, let's write our first program. Now we're going to place all of our code in .js files. So we're going to create a hello.js file in the directory that we want to be developing in. So I'm going to switch over to my editor here and create our hello.js file. Now any text editor should work, but if your IDE has a lot of fancy code completion, it might get in your way offering you choices that are only available in web browsers, like document.getElementById and the alert function. This is just plain JavaScript, so none of these DOM methods will be applicable to Node. So now we're going to write our hello world program. So we're going to start with var sys equals require sys. I'll put a semicolon. What this does is it requires a module, our system module, and it assigns it to the sys variable. Now this is how modules work inside of Node. You require them, and then the methods and attributes are made available as a single variable. Now this helps you to not clutter the global namespace, and we'll look a little more deeply into the system later on. So on the next line, we'll just say sys.puts, and we'll type in a string hello world. Now the puts method in system just simply puts the string out onto the page, and it puts a new line right after it. So we're going to save it out, and now we're going to flip back to our command line, which is in the same directory as our hello.js file. Let's just take a look. And now we can type node hello.js. And we can see hello world is printed to the screen. Now you'll notice the program exited automatically. In the last video, we said that Node was event-driven. It runs an event loop that's invisible to us, and it will continue to run the application until there are no more event listeners waiting. Since our program didn't create any listeners, it exited immediately. So let's try this. We'll flip back to our code, and on the line, and we'll do the line below it, and we'll do set interval. This takes a function, so we'll just type in an anonymous JavaScript function here. And inside of that, we'll do sys.puts hello again. Then we'll say how many milliseconds between each invocation of this function there should be. So let's just do it every 1 second, which is 1,000 milliseconds. So what set interval does is it takes the function you pass it and puts it into an event listener queue, waiting for the timer to fire the event that says the function should be called. So let's flip back to our terminal. We'll clear this out, and we'll do node hello.js. And we see hello world, and then every 1 second we get hello again. Now this program won't terminate because set interval will always keep something in the listening queue, so it won't be able to terminate. The event loop just keeps going around and around again. To exit this application, we're going to hit Control-C, and that will stop the application immediately. Now most of our applications are going to be setting up some sort of loop that maybe is listening for incoming connections on the network, or keyboard input, or something else that's a long-running application. So if you ever need to stop an application, just remember Control-C. And now we should have Node up and running on our computers. In the next video, we'll take a look at the standard library of Node and begin writing our own applications.